Jennifer Spears. I'm 35 years old in my second trimester of my second pregnancy, and I have fibroids. After I blogged about Cree's birth story about 2 years ago, I shared that I have fibroids. I shared how many, I shared how I got diagnosed and all of that good stuff. And I received such an overwhelming amount of messages and emails about other women who suffer from fibroids and either don't believe that they'll get pregnant or they are pregnant and experiencing a lot of different things, a lot of scary things. And so I wish that when I was pregnant with Cree that I was able to kind of share what I was going through, but because it was my first pregnancy, I didn't know what to expect. I just wanted to make sure that I only shared it with my husband, close family, and close friends to make sure that I was keeping my peace, protecting my peace, and making sure that nothing was clouding my judgment or clouding what God was telling me. Because God was telling me that He was going to see me through it and that the baby would be okay. And so now that I'm pregnant a second time and I'm experiencing some of the same things that I experienced with Cree, I feel like I'm in a place where I want to share more. I want to share about my journey and some of the things that I've been going through. I actually posted on my social media a very scary incident that happened, and just that I feel led by God to share my story and just what I'm going through right now. So the purpose of this video is not to provide any type of medical advice. I'm not a doctor, so everything that I'll be sharing is based on my experience, what I've experienced, and what doctors have told me. And what I'm hoping is that women who are pregnant right now and have fibroids, that they will find encouragement and inspiration in my story and what I have to say. And women who are not pregnant and maybe believe that they'll never get pregnant because maybe that's what the doctors have told them or that's what they've convinced themselves. I just want to share encouragement that it will happen for you, that just because the doctors say that it won't happen doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. Just because the doctors say that it's a struggle doesn't mean that it's going to be a struggle to get pregnant. So I want to share that. And for women out there who don't get annual examinations, I want to encourage women to make sure that you're getting your annual examinations. And in addition to getting your annual examinations, make sure that your doctor is checking for fibroids, especially if you're an African American woman. That's one of the reasons why I am also so passionate about this topic, because fibroids affect African American women more than any other race. And so this is just something that's important to me, and I just hope that you'll get something out of it. I guess I'll start with when I first was diagnosed with fibroids, or when the doctors first found out that I had fibroids. So it was probably like around 2012, towards the end of 2012. I went to my annual examination, and during the annual examination, and this was with a new doctor, I also want to point that out. It wasn't, so the fibroids may have been there before, and now that I'm seeing a new doctor, she examined something that maybe the previous doctor didn't. So I'm there at my annual examination, and she's pressing on my pelvic area, and she's like, "Oh, you have fibroids." And I was like, "I do?" And I'm like, what are fibroids? And she basically explained to me that fibroids are non-cancerous tumors that grow inside your uterus. And I was like, "Well, I never knew that I had that." And she's like, "Well, yeah, you do." She's like, "Let's find out what size they are, and let's find out how many you have." She's like, "But don't worry. They may be relatively small, and they're not bothering you," because she said if they were bothering you, you would be here to get them treated. So she scheduled for me to have an ultrasound. I go back for the ultrasound, and they find out that I had 3 fibroids at the time, and they were relatively small. And where they were located, she just basically told me, we'll just see how it goes. If you experience any heavy cramping or, to the point where you can't take it anymore and you're in extreme pain, make sure that you call us and let us know. But other than that, don't worry about it. And so that's basically what I did. I went on my merry way, not really worrying about it. Now, I will say that I did have really heavy cycles. Like I'm talking, I could wear a Super Plus tampon plus one of those overnight maxi pads, and I would still soak up the whole thing. And I mean, I know that's kind of graphic, but that's just the real of it. And women who have fibroids, they have experienced the same thing. And I just never knew what it was. And my cycle was like that. Probably it started like maybe around 2009, 2010. And so it had been going on for a couple of years. And then now we find out that I have fibroids. So it's all starting to make sense. I also have heavy cramps, like extremely heavy cramps, not to the point where I can't go to work or be able to function. I also believe that I have a high tolerance for pain. So in my case, it wasn't to where they were unbearable. So I didn't need any type of medical treatment at the time. So let's fast forward to about 2014. And so this was like maybe like a couple months before my wedding day. And so I go to my doctor for my annual exam, and she presses again on my pelvic area, and she's like, the fibroid seems to have gotten bigger. And she's like, I want to take a closer look at it. Let's schedule an ultrasound. So here we go again, with the fibroids. So I immediately go to Google and I read up on enlarging fibroids, and I mean, all sorts of things, start to come up in that Google search. Isn't that something how we do? We immediately go to Dr. Google whenever we get a diagnosis with something, or whenever we have symptoms of something. We type in the symptoms and then it comes up, and then we go into panic and worry and all of that good stuff. Well, that's where I was. So I go to the ultrasound appointment, and they see that one of the fibroids is enlarged. And then she said, yeah, you have a total of 6. And I was like, 6? Last time I was here, I had 3. So she's like, well, no, you have 6. And she's like, and one is at the time, one was the size of a lemon. So it was pretty big. And so now she's starting to talk to me about getting them surgically removed. She's starting to tell me things like, it may be a struggle to get pregnant. And so the worrying starts to intensify. And I go to Sean and I tell him, what's going on. And I told him, I was like, the doctor basically said that, that after we get married, when we start trying to have a baby, that, like we should monitor how long it takes to actually conceive. And she said within a year, if I don't conceive within a year, then she wants me to see a fertility specialist. So, no one wants to hear that. But Sean reassured me. He was like, God will open your womb in his timing. And so I rested in that, but then I still felt like maybe this is punishment. If you read our blog, SeanandJenniferSpears.com, then you know that when I was about 18 years old, I had an abortion. And I lived with guilt of that, guilt and shame, and finally I believe that I was released from it, but you know how there can still be residue of things still there, and so that's basically what it was. And so I thought, well, maybe this is punishment for the time that I had the abortion, because I had the abortion. Maybe this is punishment. Maybe I'm going to be barren. Maybe that was the one and only chance that I had to become a mother. All of these things just start to go through my head, and all I heard the Holy Spirit say was rest. Just rest. And so I just rested in that. And I'm like, you know what? I'm getting ready to get married to an amazing man who waited for me, who honored me during my courtship. That's what I'm going to focus on. And I'm just going to trust you, God. I trust that, God, I live for you, and I know that in your timing, you're going to open my womb. Well, three months after we got married, I get pregnant. So I found out 4 months afterwards. So I found out in November of 2014 that we were pregnant, and we were pregnant with Cree. And in the beginning of the pregnancy, I was bleeding. I was bleeding here and there, and then it started to become more intense as I got through the first trimester. And so I remember sitting in a class that my husband wanted me to take for the business, and I remember I was getting ready to have my first appointment, and it was scheduled 2 weeks from that day, my first ultrasound visit and first prenatal appointment with my OBGYN. And I just felt a sense of urgency that I needed to see her a lot quicker. So I called her office and pretty much begged for an appointment. And so they was like, yeah, if you come in tomorrow, you can come see her. I'm like, perfect. So I go in to see her. And during the examination, she basically said that my body wants to miscarry. And then now my mind goes back to what the doctor said about fibroids, that sometimes, depending on where they're located, that the placenta may not develop properly, and that can result in miscarriage, and that the rate of miscarriage is higher. So now I'm starting to think that, like, okay, now I'm finally pregnant, and oh gosh, I'm gonna have a miscarriage. And God, again, Jennifer, rest. And so my gynecologist basically said that she was going to prescribe me with progesterone to increase my progesterone levels, and that I would continue to take progesterone until the second trimester, when the placenta has taken over. And so my progesterone level was really low also. So I did that, and probably I had an appointment about 3 weeks from that day, and the bleeding, as soon as I started taking the progesterone, the bleeding pretty much stopped a couple weeks after that. So now I feel like I'm in the clear. I'm not bleeding anymore. So I go back to my OBGYN for my appointment, and she basically tells me that, okay, now you're entering the second trimester. I want you to see a doctor over at Northside Hospital who specializes in fibroids. And so she's like, you're going to go to the Women Prenatal Center, and you're basically going to be going there every month. So she's like, you'll come to me for your prenatal appointments, and then you'll go to them, and they will basically check on the baby and monitor the fibroids. So I go to that appointment, and in that appointment, you see like all these pregnant women who are there. And as I started going to these appointments, you go to them monthly, and a lot of times you'll have the same appointments with the same group of women. And that's kind of what happened. And you start to talk to other women who are there and share your story. And you find that there are so many women who are in the same shoes as you. And so that became comforting. And so anyway, I have my first appointment, and we go in, and he sees where the fibroids are, and he basically says, we're going to monitor it. They may grow, they may move. So he's like, we just have to continue to monitor it. He basically tells me that, where they are now, you may have to have a C-section delivery. You may not be able to deliver vaginally. So he also gave me some warnings on some of the pain that I may experience with the pregnancy due to the fibroids. And that's basically called degeneration. And I experienced that probably, I think it was like later in the second trimester the first time. And it's like this shooting extreme pain. Pain to where you just can't even breathe. And basically, during the degeneration process, it's basically where the fibroids are beginning to enlarge. And so as the uterus grows and as the fibroids begin to enlarge, it causes your uterus to contract. Okay, and so you have to be careful with that because it can send you into preterm labor. So I was just like a nervous wreck here and there during my pregnancy with Cree, because I was experiencing all these things and just not quite understanding what's going on. And so I remember I experienced that pain. I experienced it a second time, and this was in the third trimester. And I knew it wasn't Braxton Hicks. I knew that it was basically the fibroids. And I had a really bad night to the point where I was in tears and I was crying. And Sean was like, should we go to the emergency room? And so I told him no. I'm stubborn like that. I told him no, it's gonna be okay. So he just kind of rubbed me and consoled me. And that first thing that morning, I went to my doctor, and by that time the pain was gone. And she checked on Cree because my mind was always, okay, I just want the baby to be okay. And Cree was fine. And they basically said it's the degeneration process that you're going through. So now let's fast forward to the day that I gave birth to Creed. I go to my doctor's appointment, and now you have weekly appointments. And I went to my doctor's appointment at the perinatal center with the doctor who checks on my fibroids. And so he goes and checks on them, and he basically says, well, let me back up a little bit. Probably like the last 4 weeks of my pregnancy, they're really monitoring the weight of the baby. And so Cree was small. And so, I would talk to my other friends who were, around the same, who are in their third trimester as well and due around the same time as me. And they basically would be like, oh, my baby's already almost 5 pounds. And I'm like, thinking in my head, not sharing how big Cree is, but thinking in my head, oh, my baby's only 1 pound, or my baby's only 2 pounds. And so that started to worry me. Like, she's not gaining enough weight. And basically what happens is that the fibroids are taking like the blood, the oxygen, all of the things that she needs to get bigger, the fibroids are feeding off of. It's almost like, I looked at it as, it's almost like you have 2 babies in there trying to eat, trying to grow, because that one fibroid, the one that was the size of the lemon, is now growing with Cree. So that became an alarming issue, that she's going to be born with a low birth weight. So now I am, I am 38 weeks pregnant, and I go to my the appointment with my doctor at the perinatal center, and they do the check, and they're like, Cree's only 5 pounds. And so the week before, she was 5 pounds as well. So they're like, she's basically not gaining weight in the womb. So, he believed that if I went ahead and I delivered her, that she would just gain weight outside of the room. So outside of the womb. So he's like, let's go ahead and induce you today, and let you give birth, and let her gain weight outside of the womb. So he's like, everything's gonna be fine. And I'm nervous because I heard things about, when you have to get your labor induced, that your contractions aren't, they don't naturally get stronger, that it's just like goes from like 0 to 60 real quick. And that pretty much is the truth. And so but I went and I got induced, delivered Cree, and she was born at 4 pounds 7 ounces. So she was in my womb 38 weeks and gained 4 pounds 7 ounces. And I immediately, as soon as I gave birth to her, they let me spend a few minutes with her. It may not have even been a minute. To me, it felt like 10 seconds. I got to hold her, and then they immediately had to take her to the NICU. So she spent some time in the NICU. They just needed to run tests and make sure that she was okay because she was so small. And I remember going down to the NICU. They were getting my room ready, and I was like, I want to see my baby. So I go down to the NICU by myself. Sean was with our parents, with our family. He was at the hospital, but he was with our family. And so I go down to the NICU, and I see her, and she's so little, like you can literally see like her bones, and her legs are so skinny, like all the chub that babies usually get. Creed didn't get that. And so I started just feeling guilty. I was just like, and I cried, and I was even almost scared to they was like, you can pick her up and, take her out of the, it's like this, she wasn't in like an incubator, it was like a bed, but they was like, you can get her out of the little bassinet and you can hold her. And I didn't even want to do that because she was just so little. So I was so scared, and I felt like a failure. I felt like I failed her. And I'm going to try not to get tear up about it, because y'all know I'm pregnant. So, emotions and, hormones and all that good stuff. But I just felt like I failed her. And so I remember saying, God, I should have done this, or I could have done that. And God was like, no, this is how I made Cree. and she's gonna be fine. She's gonna be okay. There is nothing wrong with her. She's just petite. And he's like, I made her that way. And all of this is gonna be a part of her testimony. And as soon as God said that, I found, just peace came over me. And I picked my baby up and I held her and I kissed her and I just let her know that I love her and that she's beautifully and she's wonderfully made. And it's okay that she's little. She's gonna be my little munchkin. I just really just started loving on her. And if you've met my daughter Cree, then you understand that she may be petite, but she's so spicy. She has this larger than life personality. It's so amazing. And I'm so glad that we named her Cree, because Cree also means warrior, and she's so strong and she's such a warrior. From the very beginning of my pregnancy, my body was being attacked and with miscarriages and all these other things and the fibroids, and she survived it all. And we were released after 3 days, just like normal, and we went home and I left with my baby. I didn't have to leave my baby in the hospital, so that in itself is a blessing. So now here we are, and I am pregnant with my baby boy. So if you've seen our not our birth announcement, our gender reveal, then you know that we were pregnant with a boy. So our family, we are all just beyond excited about this pregnancy. And in this pregnancy, I experienced something super scary that I didn't before. I was about maybe 10 weeks pregnant. About 10, yeah, maybe 10, 11 weeks pregnant. And I was at Cree's doctor's appointment. And this is after, let me just set it up for y'all, just kind of what's going through my head. We were in Charleston for Easter. And Cree her fever kept going up and down, up and down. So I'm thinking, oh, well, maybe she's teething, because she was still acting her normal self until like Easter Sunday. I noticed that, okay, the fever is going up and down and she's just not acting herself. So that night, I just could not get her fever to come down. So my mother said, y'all need to go to the emergency room. We go to the emergency room. We find out that she has the flu. Who knew in April that, the flu virus was still going around? So Cree had the flu, and that was the reason for, reason why her temperature kept going up. So now we have like almost no sleep. We're on our way back to Atlanta. I call her pediatrician to schedule an appointment so that way I can get the medication that she needs. And so they tell me to come in. I go in, try to get her medication, and the appointment goes well. Get the prescription. And then I thought, well, let me go use the restroom before we get in the car, because now it's rush hour traffic. Y'all know how rush hour traffic in Atlanta is. So I go use the bathroom, and blood started gushing. Like a period, maybe even a little heavier than a period. It was like a deep red, and my heart just sunk. I was like, oh my God, I'm having a miscarriage. So I go and I call Sean, and I'm crying, and he's like, are you okay? He was like, call your doctor. Find out what we need to do. Maybe you need to go to the emergency room. I call my doctor's office. My OBGYN was not there, but the nurse on duty told me to go to the emergency room. So I call Sean back, let him know I'm going to the emergency room. I call my mother, and I'm like, Mommy, I'm having a miscarriage. And she's like, I bind those words. No, you're not. And this is before we even found out the baby's gender, and she's like, no, I bind those words. I'm going into prayer right now for you. And so I'm put Cree in the car seat, and we go to the emergency room. And so as we're sitting there in the emergency room, and I'm sitting there and I'm bleeding, and Sean comes and he meets us there, and I'm still bleeding, and I'm just like, I can't believe, we were so excited that I got pregnant a second time, that and just so hopeful. And we actually tried with this pregnancy with Cree. We just kind of went with the flow. We didn't even think that it would be, that quick, but it was. And so with this pregnancy, we were definitely trying. And so I just felt like this was the end, like this amount of blood I'm bleeding, like this is a miscarriage. And God immediately said, just started saying, just rest in me, just trust me. And so again, peace came over me, and I was just like, you know what, God, however this ends, whether the baby is okay or whether you take the baby, I trust you. I trust this process. I trust you with my whole heart. I trust you with my whole life. And so worry and fear just faded away. And I go in. Finally, y'all know how emergency rooms are. I was probably sitting there for about 8 hours. So I finally go in, and they couldn't tell me where the blood was coming from. I remember when I went to the appointment when I was pregnant with Cree, and Dr. Price could see that there was blood around my uterus and that my body wanted to have a miscarriage. And this time the doctor couldn't tell me where the blood was coming from, but they found a heartbeat. And they're like, the heartbeat was normal. And so I'm like, I'm still pregnant? And they was like, yes, you are, but just take it easy for the rest of the week. They wanted me to be on bed rest and to go see my OBGYN the next day, for a follow-up appointment. But they said, just take it easy because, blood is never a good sign. You want to be careful with that. So I go see Dr. Price, and she's like, let's put you back on the progesterone, same routine. And, she's like, the heartbeat looks great. And so she's like, I'm going to schedule the appointment at the perinatal center with Dr. Stone again, those monthly visits, so he can look at the fibroids and maybe he can get a closer diagnosis. And so I go see Dr. Stone, and he couldn't tell me, where the blood was coming from, but he said it could be that, that the fibroids are calcified. And so calcified basically means that, I kind of wrote it down. Calcified, a fibroid that's calcified is when a fibroid has reached the final stage of degeneration. So they're basically dead. And so there's like calcium around it. And so I guess that's why they call it calcified. But that's a great sign because that means that they're dead. So they're not going to do anything. The risk of them growing is super low, you know what I mean? So they're not going to grow, so they're not going to feed off of things that the baby needs. So I kind of diagnosed myself. I believe that the blood may have came from the fibroids just basically dying. No doctor has confirmed that, but that's the only thing that I can, conclude in my head. At least that helps to reassure me. But that's that's amazing news. So this could be a completely different pregnancy from when I was pregnant with Cree. This baby, may have a normal birth weight, So I'm hopeful. In it all, I'm hopeful. And in it all, I trust God. That's one of the things that I've learned the most, with this condition is that I just trust God wholeheartedly, no matter what the doctors say, no matter what anybody says, I trust God. And so now I'm starting to think about after I deliver baby boy, whether I will have a myomectomy or whether I will have a hysterectomy. And basically the only difference is that with the hysterectomy, they not only remove the fibroids, they remove the uterus as well. So that's just a decision that, I'll have to make. I tell myself this is our last pregnancy that I am done, but, I need to pray about it and make sure that is what, God wants. Even though there's a woman, I remember reading a story about a woman who gave birth after having a hysterectomy. So, God is a miracle worker. So we know that he can do all things. I just want to encourage, any woman out there who believes the lies of the enemy. God placed that desire in your heart to be a mother, and you believe that that'll never happen for you. I just want to encourage you to rest in God. If God told you, God's word will not return void. If God told you that, then just believe it. Hold on to that. Cling to it. And if you're a woman who's pregnant with fibroids, just rest in God. I know how it feels to leave the doctor's office with a bad report, and then you start to worry and you start to Google. But take all of that worry, take all of that fear, and lay it at the feet of Jesus, and just trust that he knows what's best for you and that everything is going to be okay. One of the books that I read Prayers and Promises for Supernatural Childbirth by Jackie Mize. I love that book. I read that book while I was pregnant with Cree, and it just helped to encourage me. I mean, you literally, that's one of the things that you have to do. You have to make sure that you are in the Word of God, that you are reading books that reinforce what the Word of God says, so you're not believing what the doctors say. So when you go to the doctor, you're listening, of course, and you're taking their medical opinion, but at the end of the day, there's not a doctor alive who could tell you that miracles do not happen in the operating room or in the ER, or things happen that they cannot medically explain. You know what I mean? So, and that's because God is essentially, he has the last say so. He is head of everything. He's over the doctors. He has authority over the doctor. So we have to trust God's opinion. So I just urge you to make sure that you're staying in the Word of God and that you're staying encouraged. So I'm just telling you, just rest in Him. It will happen. It will happen for you. I am pregnant a second time. When I went to our first appointment at the perinatal center with this pregnancy with baby boy, the nurse was like, wow, she's looking at my fibroids, and she was also looking at my chart from when I was pregnant with Cree, and she was like, wow, you're lucky. That's what she said. You're lucky to be pregnant for a second time. And I was like, no, I'm blessed. I'm so blessed to be pregnant a second time. God has the last say so, from the doctors telling me that, it's going to be a struggle to get pregnant, or you may not ever get pregnant. You may have to do fertility and all of these other things. And God did it not only one time, but he did it a second time. And so I just trust God. I'm so thankful for him. I'm so thankful for the opportunity to be able to be a mother and give life. And so I just want to really encourage you to trust God with your whole heart. Trust him with your whole life. Surrender it all to him. I'm going to be definitely doing more videos, more follow-ups as I progress in this pregnancy. Some days are good days, and then some days I experience cramps and discomfort. But it's all good. I'm just blessed and just excited and all of that good stuff. So I'll be doing follow-up videos, to keep you guys posted. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure that you subscribe. We have a lot of new videos that we will be doing together, Sean and myself. We're gonna try our best to keep posting on our YouTube channel, become more active as we become parents of 2 children in the home. As you guys know, we have a huge blended family, and we're also going to do a video on our blended family, and I'm excited about that. So you have to make sure that you subscribe. And if you love this video, make sure that you give me a thumbs up. You guys, make sure you can email me. You can also follow me on follow myself and my husband on our social media. So thank you so much for watching. I love you guys. God bless you.